I'm interested in two things: London and memory. I love London for its vastness, its unknowability, and for its long literary tradition. I also run the Memory Network, which is an HRC and Wellcome Trust funded research networking project that brings together scientists, arts and humanities scholars and writers. One of these writers is Will Self, and we were discussing his book, The Book of Dave, about a year ago. And it turned out that Will had used scientific research, neurological research as it turned out, as the basis for developing this character, Dave. Dave is a black cab driver, and London's black cab drivers have got in their brains the hippocampus, this organ that allows you to navigate through space. And that organ, in their case, is much bigger than in normal people. Will was fascinated by this, and as a writer he claimed he had the same experience whenever he was finishing a novel. He had to keep in his head 100,000 words, and he could feel this hippocampus throbbing away whilst he was doing this. So on behalf of the Memory Network, we invited Will to become part of new cutting-edge research that is being undertaken at UCL by Dr. Hugo Spears into the brains of black cab drivers.
Some time ago I conducted some research with London taxi drivers to understand how they use their hippocampus to navigate London's streets using brain imaging. When Sebastian approached me to see if we could examine how Will Self used his hippocampus perhaps to navigate London, I jumped at the chance to do that. With the new project to look at Will and how he uses his brain, we had devised a different approach to looking at navigation in London. And this involved several key steps. First of all, we brought Will to Soho in central London. We picked Soho as our sort of playground for looking at navigation because it has a really dense packing of streets and it has so many colourful shops, bars and cafes. It's perfect for studying navigation. So my assistant Rebecca Knight took Will round and gave him a 2-hour guided tour where he had effectively had to learn the knowledge of Soho, a bit like how London taxi drivers learn the knowledge of London. He had 2 hours to pick up Soho. So the second day, Will came into our brain imaging centre, the Birkbeck UCL Brain Imaging Institute, where we scanned his brain using functional magnetic resonance imaging. And he was a bit anxious when he came in, and he met my researcher Lorelei Howard, who took him through and explained the study and ran the experiment in the scanner with us.
Kind of initiate a new plan, basically ditch the old plan and then start with something new.
You're all mad. You really think you can see this stuff going on in the brain?
You definitely can, yeah.
That's completely. You listening to this, Carlos? Do you understand what they're trying to look at?
In black and white.
And so on that day, Will had to come in. He had to initially learn how to do the experiment in the scanner. And so the technique we used to simulate navigation, because with the huge scanner, it's just so big you couldn't drag that around London. It's not movable. So instead of taking it out in London, we have to take London into the scanner. And we did that by showing Will movie footage, first-person view images of routes snaking their way through the labyrinth of Soho.
Change again, tosser.
So that's the end of that.
Well, that wasn't much.
Well, it's just so you get used to the
Nowhere
sequence of
near
events.
bloody Wardour Street.
And what he has to do in this task is to, when he's given destinations to get to, watch the movie footage and at every street junction tell us which way he would want to go to get to that destination.
They're basically treating me as if I were a GPS that they could open up and look inside.
And once Will is inside the scanner, we project images of Soho into the scanner on a screen that lies in front of his head in the scanner. He can see through a mirror. So once Will's inside the scanner and comfy, then we'll start our scan and we'll check where he is oriented inside the scanner, that it's all okay.
Alright, so it's a short
and that
route.
he's happy to proceed, and then we effectively scan his brain, and we do that by collecting brain activity every 3 seconds through his whole brain for about 40 minutes, and then at the end we take a very detailed image of the structure of his brain. So once Will's finished that task, he's allowed to come out of the scanner and back into the bright lights of the control room, where we're able to tell him how well he's done. He's able to see his own brain then. After he's had a chance to recover a bit, we then give him a cup of tea and some cake, and we sit him down and do a surprise extra task with him. And that surprise extra task was making him rewatch those movies all over again, the ones he'd seen in the scanner. But this time, rather than telling us which way he wanted to go, we wanted to ask him if he remembered what he was thinking about the routes through the space. At every single junction, every time we gave him a new destination, did he think about where he was going to go?
What's that about? I mean, you did tell me it would do that, didn't you?
Yeah.
But it's really annoying. That's what throws you.
Yeah.
If you go left and it goes right, and you think, fuck you. Fuck you, machine. All right.
So after a period of analysis, we're able to use Will's brain activity from the scanner and what he's told us in that debriefing session to test two predictions. One, that Will would obsess more and think more about the streets of London. And the second, that if he did do that, he should use his hippocampus more. He should show more activity in that bit of his brain. So we're able to plot out on a graph both how much Will obsesses about the streets of London, how much he thinks about them when he's navigating, which is along the bottom axis going left to right. And we're also able to plot that against how much brain activity in the hippocampus we can see in our brain scans. So you can see in a graph there's a group of 24 subjects shown in black dots. They vary how much they think and how much their brain activity. And these two things are related. The more you think about the space of Soho, the more activity will show in your hippocampus. So what we've found with Will Self, and shown in the red dot in this image, is that Will does indeed, this is Will, the red dot, thinks more about the streets of London when he's navigating, and indeed he shows more than average amounts of brain activity in the hippocampus. We're also interested in how his whole brain is operating. So looking through slices through his whole brain, we can see patterns of brain activity being expressed as he navigates through London. We're interested in how he and other people are using these. It's early days with this research and this experiment, so we're still looking into how activity in the human brain unfolds as people navigate their way through a city such as London.